What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Ryan Kai Show. For today's story, we're going to be covering LeBron James and his decision to opt out of his deal with the Cavaliers. Where will he go? Other topics for today are going to cover Kawhi Leonard and some of the possible trade destinations for him. So to kick it off, Kyle, your initial thoughts on LeBron's decision to opt out.
Okay, so all the talk about LeBron James and this whole decision, but now, today, the summer of LeBron really starts. Today is the day where it all starts to fall into place. Because, let's be honest, everything before this was just all hypothetical. And it's fun to play those games. But now, the tables are going to start to turn, and things are going to start to move. So, for me, I'm interested. I want to see what happens.
See, for me, I feel like we really haven't started yet. Like, this is still all hypothetical. He could still sign with the Cavs. Like, he could still go to the Rockets. He could still make every decision he wanted to make. It's like, he could still do anything. It's like, we don't really know what he wants to do yet. We have hypotheticals. We believe he's going to do one thing, but, like, he could sign with the Cavs and chalk us all and be like, oh, okay. It doesn't really start until the 1st of July when free agency officially opens and they can start making deals and signing players and trading players. They can trade now, but it all starts really on the 1st.
And that's true, but this was an important decision that we had to see. We had to see LeBron opt out. If he would have opted in, that changes the game completely. So now that he's opted out, now we know what to expect a little bit more than what we did yesterday as far as what potentially could happen in free agency. So I'm really interested by this because it's gonna be huge. This is gonna be a crazy free agency.
Yeah, we say that, but I don't know. I have a weird suspicion that this could be a really boring free agency year. I have a feeling like Paul George stays, LeBron ends up getting like another signed long-term deal with the Cavs. DeAndre Jordan just re-signs with the Clippers to make more money. It's like Boogie realizes that the market's not good. He stays with the Pelicans. It's like Chris Paul stays with the Rockets. I have a feeling like the Rockets somehow managed to work out a deal to keep Clint Capella. I could see this being just like a complete FU to fans everywhere, thinking that LeBron's gonna leave again. Oh no, he didn't.
Yeah, and that's a distinct possibility. This really could end up being a dud of a free agency where you've got all this hype and all this talk and everything, and then nothing happens. I hope for our sake that doesn't happen.
Me too. All right, so let's start with the biggest hypothetical with the LeBron situation. If you don't know what this is, you obviously haven't been watching basketball. LeBron to LA makes sense from him from a business standpoint, from a brand standpoint, from a family standpoint, and even from a basketball standpoint if he can get some players around him.
Right.
Who do you think he will go to LA? And if he does, who do you think he'll drag with him? Do you think they'll do it through trade or just signings? And who are those players in your mind?
To me, it's about like a 60-40-10 split. I think there's about a 60% chance LeBron ends up in LA, about a 40% chance he ends up in Cleveland, and then 10% that he could magically end up somewhere else by some odd type of deal or something going down. But yeah, I think most likely he's going to end up in LA. I think he's going to go to LA regardless if another superstar goes there first.
I agree.
I think he's going to go, and then he's going to try to drag Paul George, who he's got to be in talks with. He's going to try to drag Kawhi Leonard. There's no reports out that he's in conversations with Kawhi's camp, but I wouldn't be shocked if that comes out.
I'm sure he's gonna make a call.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked if that comes out later.
Make the deal happen. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's gonna be in talks with other players, with Chris Paul, who's one of his best friends.
I think the best move the Lakers can make at this point to try and... So I feel like LeBron, like you said, I feel like LeBron is probably going to go despite having a star or not because he knows someone will eventually show up. I think the best thing they can do for them is LeBron goes as soon as free agency starts. Because if you go as soon as free agency starts, all the other free agents will have time to now, look at their options and say, if you're like Paul George, now I have a chance to play with LeBron in my home city where I always wanted to play as a kid, and it's my dream to play there in the Lakers jersey. It's like I can go play with LeBron James, the best player in the world.
So if you think that,
I don't know, because like the whole allure of Westbrook is like, if you're staying with Westbrook, you're staying with an MVP level talent. I mean, that's a big lure. And when you just go to LA with nothing, there's not that lure anymore.
So if you think that it's key for LeBron to move first and move at the very beginning of free agency, my question is, if that's the case, if you're LeBron, why don't you just come out right now and announce your intent to go to LA? Just say, look, I'm going to LA. As soon as the first opens up, that's where I'm going. And let these guys know ahead of time now. Why? Like, the whole fact that he's not saying anything tells me he wants to wait for someone else to drop in LA first.
Well,
because that doesn't show to me that he wants to be the guy that makes the first move.
Well, what I believe is that these players, I mean, they're just people. You're making one of the biggest decisions of your life. He came out and said if you ever watched the decision when he went to Miami, he even said that like he didn't know what he wanted to do. He was shuffling his ideas of what he wanted to do until the day he made his decision.
Right.
Like the morning he woke up and he's like, "That's what I'm doing."
All right.
So you are making a life-changing decision, not just for you, but your family, your like future after basketball. This is the last big decision he has to make as a player.
And he doesn't have the same coordination now that he did then. Then he kind of already had it worked out with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh that they were going to converge. He doesn't have that assurance this time around.
I think, we've talked about this before, but I think what the best thing that the Lakers can do, from their perspective, to try and get LeBron to come, is to acquire some sort of all-star, before he comes.
Right.
Because I think even just one all-star, that's enough. Like anything, you just need one all-star, one player to be there, and that's enough to convince him to come with you.
Trade for Kemba Walker.
I think, so I was going to get to that. I think the trade for Kemba Walker would be the best affordable choice they could make, because you throw in like Lonzo Ball, like either Kuzma or Ingram, and you throw in like a pick, and I think, or maybe 2 picks, depending on how much you can negotiate. I think the Hornets, that's enough to get the Hornets' interest to make a trade. They say they don't want to trade Walker, but I am 100% believe that is just pure smoke and mirrors. I 100% believe if the right deal comes their way, they will trade Kemba Walker, which makes me sad because I actually genuinely like his game. I like him as a Hornet. I want him to retire as a Hornet. He's already the franchise's leading scorer. It makes sense for him to stay there for me, but like at the same time, I don't feel like they value him as much as the fans do there. And as much as we are looking at it, I think they would be really willing to make a trade to the Lakers if they offered a package similar to like Lonzo and a few picks.
Right. No one loves Kemba Walker more than I do, and I love him as a Hornet and being part of that organization.
I do not love him as a Bobcat, though. I will make that statement known. I love him as a Hornet. But please do not bring up those Bobcat years. One of the worst teams ever when he was a part of it.
No, but I like him in the Hornets organization. I like him as the face of that franchise, and I like Kemba Walker's game. But, I mean, if he ends up in LA to draw LeBron, I think that could be enough to get LeBron to make the move, and then hopefully one of those other big guys like a Paul George falls into suit.
Yeah, we're not talking about a chump player here. We're talking about a 2-time All-Star.
No, yeah, and
Kemba scorer. I mean, he's a great person.
Yeah.
He is what you want to have as a franchise.
Yes, the sportsman of the year this year at the NBA award show.
Yeah.
I love Kemba Walker. I think he's a great player, a great person, a great guy to build your franchise around, which is why I want to see him stay in Charlotte. But if they work that type of trade out with LA, that could definitely get LeBron to make his move quicker if he's already thinking LA.
Well, if you're Mitch Kupchak, the GM of the Hornets, you gotta know that Kemba is probably not fitting that timetable that you're gonna have, because right now their salary is just through the roof. They're gonna, the deal with Dwight kind of frees up some space, but they are just not doing good. They're not a good team. They're near the cap, and they just don't have any talent to really compete and to even make the playoffs in the East. It's they're just not there. And I personally feel like you don't need to trade off Kemba to make a team that will be successful. Just have him as an older, successful star along with the guys you're going to bring in to kind of create a younger team. But I feel like in order to acquire those guys, a lot of people like trading off their older stars who don't fit that timetable. And I think Kemba's going to be a casualty of that.
Right.
And like I said, him in LA with LeBron, I think would be enough. I mean, I think him being in LA as a trade would not require them to completely dissect their roster. They'd be able to give up a decent amount to get him, but I feel like they wouldn't have to give up everything to get him like they would with Kawhi. And then you got Kemba Walker, LeBron would come, I feel like, at that point, and then I feel like if you had those two guys set and ready before Paul George makes his decision, I don't know how you don't get Paul George to walk. Like, I get he's friends with Russell Westbrook, I get he's likes OKC, but you look at, he's like fighting the decision now with no one in LA. If you get two All-Stars to sit with you in LA and his biggest goal is to get a championship, how do you not say this is the one? Like, I'm going where I belong, this is my home, I want to be here, and I get to fight for championships every year with the best player in the world, and multiple-time All-Star, who is, I think, one of the most underrated point guards in the league.
Yeah, and it's a big change, hearing Paul George this year from what we heard last year. Because last year he was so definitively locked on LA. And this year he's sitting back a little bit more, not saying as much. He seems a little bit more comfortable with the idea of staying in OKC and staying
I don't
alongside
know if that
Russ.
says more about Sam Presti and the Thunder's organization and them just like being able to, I mean, they took a gamble. And that gamble may pay off. And if they can get Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and I mean, I think they should try and buy out Melo no matter what they do. I think even if they get Paul George to come back, they should try and trade Melo for something. Try and get him out of that contract because I feel like 3 ISO-centric scorers. Paul George can play off-ball really well. Melo was trying to get into catch and shoot, but they're just too much ISO ball, too much ball dominant presence there. I think you do Paul George, Westbrook, and then get another piece like, I think a great piece would be like DeAndre Jordan or something like that. If you get rid of the contract and then go and try and sign DeAndre, or like maybe do a trade for DeAndre. I don't know. I think it's a big center to be on that team along with them. But I mean, Steven Adams is no joke. He's a great player for them, but I think a big of some sort along with them, or even if you just got rid of his contract and got some role players around that team, I mean, they're no joke either. I just don't think they're the caliber that you could get out of an LA team with Kemba and LeBron.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's going to come down to what Paul George wants to do on a personal level, I think. Paul George seems to be getting fairly comfortable in OKC. And he's built this relationship with the organization, and he's built this relationship with Russell Westbrook. And it seems to me like, LA could be more of a change that he doesn't feel like he needs to push to make right this moment. And so that's a distinct possibility that he ends up just staying in OKC.
I don't know if he would sign like a 1-year deal with OKC just to see if it can really work again, and if they get bumped out, then he leaves. I don't know if you'd be still looking to sign a long-term deal. All I do know is that there are a few times in a career where you get to make the decision on where you want to go. Like, you gotta put money. Like, Kawhi's at that point in his career as well, where you just got that decision. Your contract's up. They say after your first contract, no rookie's ever turned down a max rookie extension. So you're there for 8 years, locked up. But after that first extension is really the first time in your career when you have the chance to make a decision. And a lot of these guys leave, they can come back like LeBron did. There's usually one decision in your career that really defines where you want to go and where you want to really take your talents, essentially, and like move where you want to set up for your life. And I feel like for Paul George, he's at that time. He's in his best years of his life. He's in the best years of his career. He's only going to get better for the next few years, and then after that, he's going to hit that decline. So like around that 29, 30 range is going to be his last good years. So you got to wonder, is he going to spend the rest of his career in OKC? Because to him, it's like, it's just one more year. But he doesn't got a lot of years. If he wants a championship, he's going to have to make that decision where he thinks he can best do it.
Yeah, and look, I don't know how championship-focused Paul George is, because when he was getting ready to leave the Pacers to go to LA, or saying that, I want to go to LA, that's where I want to go, it wasn't because he wants to win championships, it's because lifestyle. He wanted to be in LA, and LA at that time had a garbage team. He wasn't going to win any championships on that LA team. So for me, I don't know how championship-focused Paul George is, or if it's more about lifestyle. And if he's liking the lifestyle he has in OKC, and he also gets that bonus of being competitive with Russ in that team, I don't know if that's enough to get him to LA.
I forgot to mention something. The cool thing about doing a Kemba Walker trade, one of the cool parts about that is that if they did a Kemba Walker trade, because Kemba Walker is so grossly underpaid right now, he would only be taking up about half of a max slot. So what they could do is, if they were able to get the Luol Deng contract out of the Lakers roster, they could also re-sign Julius Randle to a pretty good deal. Because the market is really low right now, so Julius Randle doesn't have a huge market to go grab a lot of money. So they could sign him to a pretty decent deal, about half a max contract, about like $15 million, and then go have and then that's about what Kemba's contract is. Like, he's just grossly underpaid.
Yeah.
And then you would have the two max contracts, and Julius Randle is a good piece. He's a good passer for that 4-5 position. He is a good rebounder. He's a little left-hand dominant, but he reminds me I've said this before. He reminds me of a young Draymond Green of just what he gives the team.
Yeah.
And I think he would be another piece that would make
that
team
I'd
good.
like a Kemba, Paul George, LeBron James, and then you've got Kuzma and Ingram and guys like that are pieces too, and Randall, playing as your big.
If you can keep him, yeah.
I like that type of a team. I think that looks pretty good, but, those pieces have to start falling. And like I said, everything hinges on LeBron, and if LeBron was ready to make the move to LA right now, I think he'd already be coming out and making a statement about that. Look, I intend to leave and I'm going to LA. And the fact that he's waiting till the first to say anything even tells me that he is waiting for another piece to drop first.
I don't think that's what it is. Like I said before, I think it's just he doesn't know what he wants to do. I mean, he hasn't even really talked about that. Like today, he's going to be having a sit-down conversation with all his advisors and close friends and stuff like that, to have a conversation about that for the first time. I mean, I'm sure he's floated the ideas around, made some calls, obviously. But, I mean...
Calls to Kevin Durant.
Yeah, calls to Kevin, texts.
Or text,
And it's not really, like I said before, it's not really a conversation. If you text someone, they don't respond back, or they kind of blow you off. It's like, you kind of just like a...
The way that they reported it was that it was a text conversation. So they actually had a conversation, and LeBron mentioned, trying to pull him away to come join him in LA. So the fact that there's some sort of conversation like that happened, whether it's by text or call, it tells me LeBron's looking at options. And the fact that you're saying that he hasn't made his decision tells me that he's waiting for that piece to drop, which is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think he'll go despite that piece dropping. I think he'll go no matter what. It's weird that he's calling and asking, it's when he calls Kevin Durant. He's not asking him, hey, would you be considered coming to Cleveland? He said, would you ever consider going to LA?
Right.
So why would you even say that if you're either, one, you're trying to stir some shit up and try and maybe throw in a hint to try and dissect that Warriors team a little bit and put some doubt into Kevin Durant's head, or if he's actually genuinely interested of playing with Kevin Durant in LA. But if Kevin Durant's yeah, I'll go if you go, what would LeBron do? Just say no?
No, I think LeBron would definitely jump on that decision.
It'd be instant.
Yeah. The two best players in the world playing together.
And I think that would be amazing for the league, for the Lakers. Jesus, I don't even want to hypothetical that stuff. That just shouldn't happen. If you're the commissioner, if you're ever just gonna say no to a deal, that is the deal.
Letting the two best players in basketball play with each other. No. It's pretty unfair.
If that Chris Paul trade got blocked when he tried going to the Lakers, and he ended up, what a hypothetical world we're going down. If he would have just gone to the Lakers and stayed there, who knows what we're talking about? Maybe this isn't a conversation. Maybe he didn't leave.
Yeah.
But if they're gonna block that trade, top 2 players in the world going needs to be stopped. Like, someone needs to do something to that, because that would just be the death of competition.
Yeah. But look, that's a free agent decision, so the league has no ability to stop that type of a deal from happening anyway.
Yeah.
There's no trade involved to block, so...
Yeah, I don't know, though. You gotta do something.
It's not... Look, that's good hypothetical fun, but let's be honest, that's not happening. Kevin Durant's not going anywhere.
Happen.
That's not happening.
Durant's probably not going to move anywhere for the next bit of his contract. I expect him to sign about a 3-year deal. I think that's the right amount. I think 4 or 5 is too long. I think 3 years about how much he wants to see, how many he can win with the Warriors. Then after that, he's still young enough to where he can make one more move, like LeBron's doing now, to go to another team if he wants, or maybe he stays with the Warriors. But
yeah, why not finish your career out with the Warriors? If you win another couple championships with them, why not just say, hey, I'm just gonna let myself retire here, get my jersey hung up in the rafters, and just call it good.
It is interesting, though. I find this to be really interesting. That Kevin Durant, we all think of him as a Thunder. He played for the Thunder for so long. He's one of the all-time leading scorers on the Thunder, if not the all-time leading scorer for the Thunder. Because I don't know if they roll over like the Seattle stats, but even if they did, I think he would still be all-time leading scorer. But I don't know if Westbrook's ahead of him now. But that team's gonna have to retire his jersey eventually, the Thunder.
Right.
But now, I don't know if you can even consider him a Thunder when he retires. Like at this point, like if he plays like another 3 or 4 seasons with the Warriors, and he has a bunch of championships with them, how can you even?
And that's what I'm saying. Why not just sign the long-term deal and just stay with them? Stay as a Warrior for the rest of your career.
That's a possibility. I just think LeBron may be trying to stir some things up with that little text.
Yeah, there's no doubt he's trying to stir the pot.
But at the same time, I think he has some genuine interest of trying to, try and get some players, send some texts. I know he's going to make a call to Paul George if he hasn't already.
Yeah.
I know he's going to make calls or texts to Kawhi.
Well, and this is LeBron James we're talking about. He is one of the few guys in the league that has the power to stir the pot and to actually make things happen. So it's expected. It's expected that LeBron would do something like this.
I would be careful if I'm the Rockets, because Chris Paul's going to try and recruit LeBron to the Rockets. He's been saying that all summer. But if you're Chris Paul talking to LeBron James and he's saying, hey, Chris, I'm going to go to LA, that place you never wanted to leave, that place that they almost offered you a bunch of money, that place where your family got moved into, that all your family lives, a place that you really felt like was your home. It's like, I'm going to go there and make a super team there. Just saying, you're a free agent. Wink, wink. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
It's
definitely a scary proposition. If I'm Houston right now, I'm scared if I'm Houston, because that is a possibility. LeBron's in talks with the top guy you brought over to be alongside James Harden, and you've also got the Warriors who are poaching Trevor Ariza.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
you've got Clint Capella who's going to be shopped with a bunch of teams.
They didn't even have to poach Trevor Ariza. Trevor Ariza came out and said he would take a mid-level exception to play for the Warriors.
Right.
Which makes me think, why? Trevor Ariza has a title.
Yeah.
He would play with the Lakers.
He's a good fit with the Warriors.
Did he win one with the Lakers?
Trevor Ariza?
I know he played with the Lakers during the Kobe era.
I think he won in that Kobe era where he won the 2 titles by himself.
Yeah.
Maybe, or he might have been post that. Anyway, but
yeah, he's played, but he has championship pedigree. If he has a title, it's like there's no reason to go title chase. So if I'm him, I'm getting older. I'm taking the money. Now
we'll see.
What that would mean is I would become a free agent and say, hey, whoever wants to pay me the most money, pay me. And if the Rockets want to match, I'm okay with the Rockets.
Right.
Now, that's just me. because and my point is, if you have a championship, or I mean, a lot of these guys want championships. Like, the goal of everyone's players is to get your championship. But if you have a championship, it's all about money at that point. I feel like that's why Kawhi is making his decision to kind of he doesn't want to go sign that Supermax, even though it's a lot of money he's putting up on the table, because he has his championships. Now it's time to go get the money and be happy with where you are. Though he's losing out on the money part, he wants to make the decision that we were just talking about, that one decision in your career to go choose where you want to go after your rookie extension.
Right.
It's time for Kawhi to make his decision where he wants to go after his rookie extension contract's up. So it's his first choice, and he wants to go to LA.
He's going to be sacrificing a lot of money.
But he'll make that back eventually.
Yeah. But my point about Houston was this. If I'm Houston, I'm a little scared, because the core of your team that just took the Warriors, who won the championship, to a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals, the core of that team is in danger. Chris Paul, who's the least likely to leave. But Chris Paul, Trevor Ariza, and Clint Capella.
Yeah.
There's some serious threat to that cohesiveness in Houston.
So here's what they would have to do, the Rockets, if they wanted to acquire LeBron, which I think we can both agree is not very likely of happening.
Pretty unlikely.
But just to say it was, what they would have to do to acquire LeBron is they would have to renounce the rights to Clint Capella and Trevor Ariza. They would probably have to get rid of Eric Gordon. And they would probably have to get rid of all these role players like PJ Tucker, who helped make them into this team that competed with the Warriors this year. And that is a huge dissection for a team that was so close to winning it all. And now that LeBron's opted out of this contract, it's made it hard to do a sign and trade in order to get those pieces.
Right.
So that already has lowered the chance of that happening to almost zero. It could still happen. Anything could happen, obviously, so if you're the Rockets, just say like LeBron thing's out now. So you have to strip your roster just to do it, but you would obviously do it if LeBron was willing to go. But if LeBron is out now, your first priority is signing Chris Paul. Now, I get there's a threat of him going to LA with LeBron. I think that percent, we're talking percentages like we were earlier, I think that percent's probably around like 5-10%.
Right.
I think it's like almost non-existent. I think it's not impossible, but I wouldn't bet on it. And I think, so your first priority is to re-sign him to as much money as he wants. You're going to kind of eat the contract at the end of his career, like a few years down the road. Towards the end of the contract, you're going to kind of bite the bullet with his like 25-30 million that he's going to get at like 35, 36. But like, I mean, that's going to suck, but you're going to pay that to get Chris Paul for long term. And then with the money you have left, you try and attract Clint Capella to stay, because I feel like he's one of the other big pieces of that defense and of that offense. And I just feel like he's a key piece, but the problem is I don't know if they have enough money to offer him a max while keeping guys like Trevor Ariza and PJ Tucker intact on the team. I think PJ Tucker, Trevor Ariza, and then maybe try and get another center for a lower price is the better move than trying.
And there's a chance, because of how saturated this free agency market is with the big men, there's a chance that Houston lets Clint Capella walk away first, and then lets him test the market, and if he goes out and there's not a max contract out there for him, they may say, all right, here's a bargain contract that's less than max.
Do they have the bidding rights on Capella? Because if they have the bidding rights, when he opts out, they can still match any offer that's given.
Right.
It's a thing that the league implemented a while ago.
Right. So there's that possibility. And if I'm Houston, Capella's more of a wait and see. Let him go test the market. There's a lot of big men out there. There's Boogie Cousins, DeAndre Jordan. So, you've got a saturated big man market.
I personally feel like the best one available, the most one I'm comfortable with is Clint Capella. And I know Boogie is a much better center. I will not debate that he's not. But he's coming off an injury. He's older. he doesn't fit the system as much.
No, and I'm not saying Houston should go get that guy. I'm just saying let Clint Capella walk and test the market, knowing that if he strikes out and can't find anything, you can go get him at a bargain price.
You want to talk about all the possibilities. Clint Capella will probably get a max no matter where he goes. And like there isn't a huge market for big men right now. Like there's only a few big men.
But how many teams out there can pay max? There's not a lot of teams with cap space right now for that.
The Suns could clear up enough to make him a max offer, but now they've drafted Ayton. That probably won't happen. People were talking about if they went with Doncic, that they would probably try and go get Capella. That's no longer an option. So teams that could go do it, Lakers are a possibility. If they can't find any other stars, go get Clint Capella, and then next year when there's better free agents available, you can do like a sign and trade with Clint Capella to get him off the roster for a new superstar. It's a little bit of an upgrade. Other options are the Mavericks. If that right now it looks like they're eyeing DeAndre Jordan. There've been sources saying that they're targeting Jordan, that they're kind of that little beef they had after Jordan agreed to sign with them, and then he went back on that agreement and stayed with the Clippers. That's kind of under the bridge now. So I mean, if that falls through though, again, Clint Capella could easily be signed there because they can make the moves to try and get that contract, and that would be good for them. I'm sure there are some teams I'm not thinking of, like the Hawks and the Bulls have cap space, but they're not really in a position to really want to sign Clint Capella.
Right. And that's my point, is I don't know if there is a max contract, like for sure a max contract. I think there's more likely Clint Capella gets a max contract than that he doesn't. But I'm not 100% sure that he goes and gets that max.
But he can't stay with the Rockets if he gets that max. Like,
right.
They don't have the money.
But I'd take that bet if I'm the Rockets and let him walk and test the market and hope that you can get him at a bargain price. It's a possibility.
That's a real risk for one of your linchpins of your offense and defense, though. I think he's probably, in my mind, the fourth most critical part of that Rockets team. In my mind, it's James Harden, number 1, Chris Paul, number 2, and then Eric Gordon, number 3. He's a starter when you need him to be a starter. He's one of the best 6 men in the league, 6 men of the year, almost 2 years in a row. I mean, he's a huge part of that team. I just don't see them retaining all their pieces. Like, they're so cap heavy right now, and they've got to resign Capella and Chris Paul. I just don't see them being able to retain it all. And if they retain Capella, they'll lose out on Ariza and PJ Tucker, who are still great defenders, great 3-point shooter, like guys they just need for that roster.
Yeah, and
if they go to retain those guys, they'll lose out on Clint Capella, who's a linchpin.
And we say that, but there's always that rare possibility that they just go over the cap and pay luxury.
Yeah,
some
teams do have the Warriors have been
especially if they think that they have a shot at a championship within the next 2 years, and they need all those guys to do it. There's a chance they let Capella walk, and then if someone offers them a max, they just match it and pay luxury. I think that's unlikely, but it's an option.
They were close to the Warriors this year, so it's not like they have this huge gap they need to make up.
Right.
They just need to retain everyone, and then who knows what would have happened if Chris Paul was healthy. But I always say this argument, because I've been hearing this a lot all over the place, that, what would have happened if Chris Paul was healthy? Well, Chris Paul's never healthy in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, he's been injured in the playoffs for like 4 consecutive years.
It's a serious concern.
So it's like, there's a lot of what ifs. What if the Clippers had him healthy and had Blake healthy? It's all a lot of hypotheticals. If you're injured all the time, you just kind of have to factor that into what could happen.
Right.
And
it really doesn't matter if James Harden's not coming in and scoring well, and not playing up.
James Harden gives you every other game. I mean, that's not consistent enough to beat the Warriors. You need to be on your game every game. Speaking of the Warriors, they have a lot of pull with these older veterans who want to win rings, and it's been a thing for years. They got David West. JaVale McGee's not really a veteran, but they got JaVale McGee, and they're able to re-sign them because the guys think they can go win a second championship, like they did with Pachulia, and Iguodala and Livingston like to stay there because they're winning championships consistently. But they have this pull with they need roster spots. They just go to veterans and say, "Hey, top veteran role players in the league who make up some of the best playoff teams, like the PJ Tuckers, the Trevor Arizas, Jamal Crawfords. They're all like, hey, who wants to come join the Warriors team? And there is a lot of interest. Two of those names I mentioned, Trevor Arizas came out and said that he would take a minimum to go join the Warriors, which I think is a double loss. It's like it hurts the Rockets so much because you're losing your starter at the small forward position, a great defender, a good 3-point shooter, and you're giving him to your biggest competitor in the West.
Right.
Who's going to then put him on the bench because they don't need him as a starter like you do. And then the same thing goes with Jamal Crawford. He's probably the fourth or fifth most important player on that up-and-coming Timberwolves team.
Yeah.
And he's probably your biggest scorer off the bench, and you're going to take him, and the Warriors could poach him to add him because there's a lot of mutual interest to bring him back to Golden State.
Yeah, the Warriors are kind of the dark horse in this whole free agency process this summer and that's weird because they're the most talked about team during the regular season and playoffs, but they are just kind of sitting back in the shadows and making these smaller moves that are improving their team piece by piece with these veterans. And everyone's talking about LeBron and LA and where he's going and all that. But the Warriors are doing some things and making some moves that are worth noting.
So I noted there was a lot of these weird speculation things right after the finals where they're like, would they want to continue making improvements and trying and acquire Anthony Davis for a Klay Thompson, Draymond Green trade? That was all just ridiculous hypotheticals. So there's not impossible to happen, but that's probably never going to happen. The Pelicans don't want to get rid of Anthony Davis, and the Warriors, why would they want to change up the formula? But I will say this: 2 years ago, in the first year with Kevin Durant, they had a really good roster and depth, and even the year before that, it was better. So it's been getting weaker every year. And I think the Warriors know this, and it has been mentioned as that one of their weakest points in their team right now is that they've been getting weaker and weaker and weaker on their bench and their depth. I mean, they're relying a lot on these young guys, which I think adds a little bit of an advantage, speed-wise and energy-wise, but at the same time, they don't have that experience that you really need sometimes. So when you go and get a guy like Trevor Ariza or Jamal Crawford to come off your bench, you are bolstering that team to being, hey, this is an older bench, but they are really, really solid. These guys could probably be starters on other teams.
And great fits. Both of those guys are killer fits for the Warriors bench.
3-point shooting, you got both of them, and Trevor Ariza is a lockdown defender. He's one of the better defenders on the Rockets. I mean, what else could you ask for from the Warriors? That 3-and-D is exactly what you want for the Warriors system.
Exactly, and Jamal Crawford can still come off the bench and put up numbers when Steph Curry and Clay and KD aren't in the game. He can still come off the bench and produce and give you some points and do it all by himself with not much around him. That's a great piece to add.
He's a little bit more ball dominant than Trevor Ariza is. He likes to keep the ball in his hands and score, but
that's good for a second team. And that's good for a second team.
He can score. Jamal Crawford had a great season with the Timberwolves. He is a good shooter. He's a good shooter, a good ball handler, aging well with his game. Yeah. I think he would be any team that's competing in the playoffs would be lucky to have a piece like him. And if it's the Warriors, you're just screw us, right? If you're the rest of the league, you're just screw us. I mean, they're just getting all the best veterans to bolster that team that's already probably one of the better teams ever.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point, is that they're just sweeping up all these pieces no one really is talking about or caring about, and they're sweeping them up and into making their team that much better. When you're already talking about the best team, I mean, why not? So I think those are pretty good moves on the Warriors' part.
So speaking of teams who can compete with the Warriors, you got teams like the Rockets, but if you look towards the East, I think the team that's not being talked about enough, and then they act like there needs to be this Kawhi Leonard business needs to affect them so much, is the Celtics. And why I say this is that you hear about the teams that would be interested in Kawhi Leonard, and obviously the Lakers are the team that you're hearing the most about. But then they talk about the Celtics. And when they're talking about the Celtics, they're like, well, they have the most assets. They have 6 first-round picks in the next, 3 years. That's ridiculous. It's insane. And they were one of the youngest, most talented teams in the league still. They have and they almost made it to the NBA Finals. They went to Game 7 against the Cavaliers without their two best players in Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. So everyone still says that they should make a deal to try and get Kawhi. I don't know if they do. I don't know if it's just better for them to stand pat, wait, sit on their draft picks, and continue to get young talent that will make them a very long, consistently good team that could compete with the Warriors every year from the East. I just don't know if they are in a rush to make a Kawhi Leonard deal. They can stand pat and just wait.
Yeah, and Danny Ainge came out and said that the blockbuster deals are unlikely in this free agency.
Yeah,
that they're not likely to make moves.
He doesn't need to make a move.
Yeah,
he can stand pat and just wait.
He's not feeling pressured, and he doesn't really want to give away Jaylen Brown or Tatum or some of these pieces, Rozier, that he has, or those 4 first-round picks they have next year in the 2019 draft. He's not in a rush to give any of those assets away for anything.
If you're Danny Ainge, the contracts that you have with Jaylen Brown, Tatum, Rozier are very team-friendly. They're very low. They're on their rookie contract still. Very easy to maneuver around. They're very flexible. Whereas you look at Kawhi, you would have to give up all these guys and some of your future picks. You would have to pretty much mortgage a chunk of your future to try and get Kawhi, who's coming off an injury, who we don't even know what his medical status is right now.
Right.
He could come back to be the same player. He could not. We don't know. I assume he will come back to be a very similar player. But that being said, you don't know if he's going to come back. You don't know if he'll re-sign with you, Boston. So you're mortgaging your future, giving a bunch of your picks that's taken so long for you to collect, giving some of your young talent who's just now starting to show that they could be starters in another team, and you got them locked up for 2 or 3 more years. You don't need to get rid of those guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it's too high a cost for Kawhi unless he makes some sort of agreement stating that he's going to re-sign with Boston.
But how exactly does he do that now? Because he doesn't have an agent. He's kind of working with his uncle and some of his friends to kind of be his representatives. I don't know if, I don't know if you're Danny Ainge, I don't know that you make a deal if you don't have at least, a shaken agreement. But even that, it's, scary.
No,
they had an agreement, DeAndre Jordan had an agreement with the Mavericks. And then all it takes is a little bit of influence from people around you, and then boom, the agreement's off.
Yeah, and I think that's why Danny Ainge came out and said that the blockbuster deals are unlikely, because I don't think that they're going to give all that stuff up,
And maybe part of it may be him trying to kind of lower the value on Kawhi. I mean, that's also part of it. I mean, I think part of it's what we're talking about. Part of it is some of these guys always say I'm not going to make the deal. The deal's not likely. And then they wait until the trade deadline next year, and then they make the deal because they want to lower the value.
And 2, he could be making these offers and getting a lot of resistance, or making offers, trying to offer pieces that aren't the big ones, and he's not getting enough out of that, and so he's saying, kind of lowering the expectations of the Boston fans, saying, look, we're probably not going to get a deal done. It's not likely.
They don't need to get a deal done.
Right, to keep them from, expecting him to try to make this big pull-off to get Kawhi. So he could just be lowering expectations. That doesn't mean a deal still can't get done. It just means he's trying to lower the bar of expectations.
I don't think he needs to make a deal. I think he is perfectly fine standing pat and just not doing anything. Hearing a lot of these things Kyrie for Kawhi, it's I don't know if you want to do that. I think your chance of re-signing Kyrie is a lot higher than your chance of re-signing Kawhi next year.
And Kyrie played really well with Boston. He was a good fit. You don't know if Kawhi will even be a good fit on your team, or if it can be cohesive.
Yeah,
there's too many variables.
And another point I want to bring up is that Kawhi is a 3. Now, I get the league is becoming more positionless, but he's a 3. He's a forward. He plays what LeBron does. He plays what KD does. He's a 3. The young talent you have on that team, a lot of it is at that wing position. Jaylen Brown plays 2-3.
Right.
Jason Tatum plays 3-4. And then you've got Marcus Morris, who's done a phenomenal job I think I may have messed up. It may have been Marquise. Sorry, it's one of the Morrises.
I think it's Marcus. I think you're right.
I think Marcus
Morris, yeah.
Did a phenomenal job for this season, giving them defense, stretching his game out a little bit. I think he was a good piece for them. And he would also probably have to go in a Spurs trade.
Yeah.
So I've never liked the idea of teams mortgaging everything they have to try and get free agents, because if it doesn't work, you have no future.
Especially when you have so many question marks like we do with Kawhi. You have the question mark of if he'll resign. You have the question mark of if he'll even hold up on a deal because he doesn't have an agent. You have the question mark of his health. You have the question mark of will he be a good fit for the team.
And
There's too many questions.
And if you're the Celtics, I think they did it the right way. When you're looking at a team, how to build, the Warriors have done it the right way. How they draft their talent. They have the drafted talent ready. They're competing with the drafted talent. And then once they've established that they are a good team, then they go pick the free agent they want. Or they make a trade for the guy they want. Boston did it another great way. They've drafted talent. They were getting better and better and better. They got a free agent in Al Horford, who signed a good deal for them, and he's been phenomenal for them since coming there. He's rejuvenated, I think, his career a little bit from that lull he kind of had in the last seasons with the Hawks.
Yep.
Then you go and make a trade for Kyrie, which in retrospect was like stealing.
And Gordon Hayward.
And I was gonna get to that, but they just signed Gordon Hayward. Like they just straight up got him from the Jazz, which was a risky proposition, and I feel like, they made the right trades. They get their talent through the draft. They make the right free agency picks, and now they have a team that looks like they could be good for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and all these teams that look like they're going to be really good are doing it that way. They're following the Warriors' formula of building through the draft.
The
we talk about that's exactly where I was going. You talk about the 76ers and how they've built through the draft, and Boston and how they've built through the draft.
The Warriors are the greatest example of how to build for their draft. Curry
Exactly.
was drafted, Draymond Green was drafted second round, so before you say, oh, they're all cheaters, you could have drafted Draymond Green any team in the NBA.
And some of these bad teams are trying to follow in that suit too. We look at what Phoenix has done this year, and they're trying to do that. The way they went out and got Justin Jackson in the draft, and they got Devin Booker in the draft, and they got Ayton. They're trying to build their team that way.
Bridges is another.
And Bridges,
player.
Even Marquise Chris, though he's kind of a flop. They went and got a bunch of pieces trying to build a team through the draft.
I hesitate to use the word flop with players ever until they're out of the rookie contract. I think the way I've always looked at it, and the reason I think the NBA has a 4-year contract for rookies, is that the first year is to build your body. You should never expect your guys to play good in your first year. It's to build your body. The second year is to start getting accustomed to the NBA and start kind of improving your stats. The third year is your jump year. A good example of this is Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram had a abysmal first year to where no one wanted to vote for Rookie of the Year. And he had an abysmal first year. This year he moves up to 16%. Improvements all across the board. Rebounds, assists, percentages, 3-point percentage, field goal percentage. Free throw still sucks at 64%, but he made all the improvements. The third year is your jump year. That should be the year you make a jump. But if you don't, you have another year just to see how it works out and just to test the contract. And at year 4, if you haven't done anything, you're either traded or you're just not re-signed. Yeah. And that's how I feel like that. That's how it works.
I mean, my point is that you've got even some of these bad teams that are trying to follow that formula of the Warriors, building through the draft, doing it the right way. Phoenix is one example of that. Even though they went and got some free agents and trades, I think Minnesota is trying to follow that type of a formula.
You need to be good before you can get free agents, especially the small market teams. Let's be real here. If the Warriors weren't good right now, they would not be getting any talent. If they were a lottery team, they would not be getting any talent. Now, they're in the Bay Area. It's a little bit more appealing than other teams, but they still are not a market where I think, they are in line for big stars every year. I think that the big cities like Atlanta, Chicago, New York, LA, this is my opinion. Boston can get away with maybe using their pedigree and their franchise as a little bit more leverage than a lot of teams, but they're still in a good city. Boston is not a bad city to live in. It's a good city. It has allure.
No, Golden State's a great area. I mean, look, anytime you're in California, it's nice. But the thing with, Golden State is the only reason they're attracting people is because they're Golden State right now.
Because they were a 73-win team, then they get Kevin Durant. You need to have that. That's
what a lot of the young, like you said, a lot of the younger teams who are drafting, like my Sacramento Kings, try and do it that way, get through the draft. Sometimes they're not as successful as the Warriors, but who can be all the time? You don't get Steph Curry's and Draymond Green's and Klay Thompson's every day in the draft, but it's a process. But that's the right way to do it in my mind, is to do it and then collect the veterans around it once you've established the core of your team.
Yeah, and you try to draw one of those big free agents. I mean, that's what Minnesota did. They went and got Cat in the draft, and they realized he's enough to go and get some trades and go get, some good, decent players.
You make a trade or you try and get free agents.
You make a trade.
You're a small market team like
you got to make the trade.
You got to make the trade.
You got to make the trade. You can't do it through free agency, so you do it through the trade, and they've done a good job there of building around Cat, but you built the right way. Look at Milwaukee and what they've done, getting Giannis Antetokounmpo and Jabari Parker when he's healthy is a decent player, and Middleton, and you get all these pieces. And, Brogdon, who was Rookie of the Year, and you get all these pieces through the draft, and you do it the right way, and then you try to build around that.
I will say this, though. It's a dangerous proposition when you start betting that your guys are going to stay with you more than 8 years. Because I always say, no one's ever turned down a rookie max extension. So if you're getting a rookie max extension, you got 8 years with a player. The thing with Giannis is looking great. Every year he's looking better. He's a phenomenal talent. He says he wants to be with Milwaukee. But at the end of that 8-year span with Milwaukee, if he still feels like he can't get out of the first or second round, the doubts start creeping into your mind as a player. Why would I want to stay with this losing team when I can go to any other team?
And that's why you got to bring in those free agents or trades if you're a small market.
You have a small window. Once you found your cornerstone superstar, your franchise player, you have a small window to get the free agents, make the trades, and start getting talent around them.
You got to build around those teams to convince them to stay. Yeah. And that's what they are facing there. But
a good example of teams who could not get the talent around them enough. The Bulls a few years ago, the Hornets now had a few good pieces. Kemba Walker was their star, couldn't get enough talent around him, couldn't make trades, couldn't get free agents, couldn't do anything. And
couldn't draft right, too.
They couldn't draft right, but they make a few bad choices with contracts, and now they're with a bunch of bloated contracts, and they're one of those teams that just needs to either blow it up or restructure their entire team, which is nearly as hard as blowing it up and restarting.
Yeah, neither way is looking good for Charlotte, and this is a team. Look, a couple years back, I was high on Charlotte. I was like, they're one of the underrated.
Back, they were in the playoffs.
I was like, they're one of the underrated teams. They can come in as an 8 seed and surprise some people and maybe make it second, third round of the playoffs. And God, they have been disappointing since then. I mean, and part of it is they put some big bets money-wise on some bad people.
Now let's get back to the LeBron James sweepstakes and the Kawhi Leonard sweepstakes, because I feel like that's pretty much what dominates the summers. If you're not talking about LeBron and you're not talking about Kawhi, what are you talking about? I feel like with LeBron, if he wants to make the team happen in LA, he's going to be at the first. You were saying that he's waiting for other guys, and that may be the case. But if he really wants it to happen, he's got to be the first guy to go. Because once he goes, players will be attracted to him like a magnet. So it really comes down to, will he be the first domino? Or who will? So who do you think is the first domino to fall? If like you had to just pick one guy that makes all the other pieces fall in line, who is the guy who makes the first decision?
Look, here's the thing with that, is LeBron James needs to be the first one to go to get all these dominoes to fall. But at the same time, not only will he be, is that a realistic expectation? Like, we expect LeBron to be like he was in Miami, where he goes and then things fall in place. I don't know if LeBron has the pull power that he used to have. There's a chance he goes to LA and Paul George says, nah, I'm good. And Kawhi says, or the Spurs say, we're not going to trade Kawhi this year or whatever. I mean, there's a chance LeBron doesn't have the same pull that he had a few years back, too. I think LeBron needs to be the first.
I think he still has enough pull.
I think he does, too. I think LeBron needs to be the first one to go. And I think if not LeBron, it needs to be Paul George. It needs to be one of those two guys. Either one of those go. But they're in a standoff right now. I feel like they're in a standoff and they're waiting for each other to go. And if the standoff lasts too long, then no one's going anywhere.
Well, I think LeBron's going to LA no matter what. But right now, he wants to have some certainty. I think even if he can't get anyone to go with him, he's going to go to LA just because that's where he wants to be. Now, I think the chance of him getting a star all depends on him. If he goes first, I think then Paul George will go. I am 100% certain that Paul George will not be the first domino drop. And the reason I say that is because I think he's so on the fence right now. I think he's so 50-50 right now that he can't decide. And until someone moves, all he's looking at is saying, there's LA, place I really want to go back to, place that's my home, place I want to play for forever, but they have nothing there. And I'm playing with Russell Westbrook, an MVP, and Carmelo Anthony, a Hall of Famer, on a decent team with where the fans love me, and it's a good organization that supports the players. Why would I want to mess this up for so much uncertainty? But if LeBron's already there, then it's like, well, at least I know I'm playing with the best player in the world. That's already an upgrade from Westbrook.
But if LeBron does go first, and Paul George still decides, I know what you're saying is you feel like if LeBron goes to LA, Paul George will follow. But if LeBron,
he may not
if
follow.
LeBron goes first to LA and Paul George does not go to LA with him and he stays in OKC, what does that then say about LeBron and his power to attract superstars?
Well, one player doesn't change the outlook of how people look at you. I will say this, though. If you're the Lakers, you got so many options. You can get Kawhi with a bunch of trades with a massive deal. You maybe get Paul George. Even if you don't, you make a trade for Kemba Walker, Clint Capella. Boogie Cousins is still a free agent. And if he's a good backup plan, it's like they are not in a bad position. They have so many talent. And then they got next summer. They got all the castings for next summer. If you're LeBron, you know you're getting some stars. There's no way you get 0 stars in 2 years. In LA, the biggest market for basketball, where most of these guys are from, I mean, it's just, there's no way you get 0 guys.
Yeah, and we're talking about LeBron James. He's going to bring someone in.
And I get your thing about how he may not have the pull. That may be true, and I think there's a lot of guys who want to prove they can do it on their team. They don't like being the LeBron sidekick, and immediately when you play with LeBron, you're going to be the sidekick. Though, I do have a theory that I think that may change in LA. Because I think if Kawhi Leonard went with him, everyone's been using this whole like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen thing. Like you got your 2-man team that's just they're locked down, they're good, they're going to be superstars together, right? But unlike the Scottie Pippen comparison, we're not talking about Jordan in the prime years of the Bulls. We're talking about Jordan at the end of the years of the Bulls, moving towards like the Wizard years. It's like we're talking about the end of career decision.
Yeah.
So I
mean, we don't know.
I would expect a transition.
We don't know that about LeBron. LeBron's coming off one of his best years this year. And
But-
the other thing is,
But if he's staying in LA for the rest of his career, that's where he's finishing his career, and you will see the declining years in LA. And if that's the case, if he has another superstar with him, I could see a transition period where he kind of passes the torch to that guy.
And that's a distinct possibility. The other thing you just talked about is that you got these people, these superstars who don't want to be LeBron's sidekick. Paul George is starting to get comfortable in that number 2 slot in OKC. And if your options
He
are...
really showed he could play off ball.
Right, but if your options are be the number 2 guy and be Russ's sidekick, or be the number 2 guy and be LeBron James' sidekick, I'm taking LeBron James all day.
Okay, and I get everyone says you're going to be sidekick Russell Westbrook, but I think it's more of a partnership with Westbrook than it would be. You would definitely be a sidekick if you're going with LeBron. You would not ever get all the attention. He's in LA, LeBron in LA, LeBron's everything, LeBron is life, okay?
And I disagree because, okay, maybe from a visual, from a media and the way that the team is marketed standpoint, but as far as actual play, LeBron's much more unselfish, much less ball dominant, usage rate wise than Russell Westbrook.
Well, his
I
usage
think
rate is still one.
it's
top
really
5
high.
in the league
It's
with Westbrook
it's really high. But he's more unselfish. He's more about spreading the ball. I think Russell Westbrook is more of the guy over Paul George than LeBron would be the guy over Paul George as far as actual play on the court.
I think if he wants to keep Paul George happy, which seems to be a problem with all the people who play with LeBron James, but if he wants to keep Paul George happy, he has to treat him more as a partner than a sidekick. I think
Yeah.
that's a key piece to whoever goes. I mean, it's going to be hard if you get like Clint Capella and Kemba Walker because like those guys just aren't good enough to be considered a partner. They're more like sidekick characters. But
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know if you're Paul George, if you risk everything until he commits. I think LeBron has to be the first domino. I agree with your statement saying he has to be the first piece to go. I don't agree with the fact that I don't think Paul George will make this decision first because he has the hardest decision to make.
I don't think he will either. I think that's what LeBron's waiting for.
Yeah, LeBron has a lot to think about coming up. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. If you liked this video, subscribe. We're all going to be available on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can find our videos anywhere there. If you like, make sure you subscribe. And we'll see you next time on The Ryan Kai Show.